AITA for ruining my cousin's honeymoon after not being invited to her wedding. I, 27F, have a cousin, 27F. We'll call her Kathy, fake name, who got married last weekend. For some background, 2 years ago I inherited a cabin in the mountains from my maternal grandmother after she died. This is not the grandmother Kathy and I share. It's in a peak mountain town with lots of activities around. For the first year, I lived in it, fixing it up to eventually rent as an Airbnb. During that time, Kathy would visit periodically and stay with me. Once I moved out and placed it on Airbnb, she would continue to ask for a week or so to stay in the cabin when it wasn't peak season. She loved it so much. She asked if she could use it as her honeymoon location. I told her yes and blocked out the dates on Airbnb for her honeymoon, which would have been this week. I told her congratulations and that I'd stockpiled the Airbnb with a bunch of romantic stuff, candles, rose petals, etc., as her wedding gift. She was so excited. That was back in May. However, 3 months ago, I got a call from my aunt. Apparently, my whole family and I weren't invited to the wedding. We were shocked as we had assumed we'd be coming. My aunt told us that my cousin said she doesn't know us well, and that we weren't there for her childhood. We do live in different states. We didn't hear from my aunt or cousin again. Instead, for the weekend of Halloween, my family and I changed our plane tickets. They weren't refundable, and skipped a major snowstorm in our hometown to live it up in Florida for the week. This is where I may have been an asshole. For a while, I considered just leaving everything alone. But as of November 1st, ski season starts and it would be a big week. Honestly, I needed the money. So a week after I was told I wasn't invited, I decided to text Kathy that I was going to remove her reservation from my Airbnb unless she wanted to pay for the dates. I never got a response. No, she didn't block me. I can see the text went through. I texted her one more time about 2 months ago before putting my Airbnb back online for that week. No response. It booked up within 24 hours. The day after her wedding, she texted me and asked me when she could expect the cabin to be ready. I texted her back that I told her months prior that I was going to rent it out to someone else. Unless she paid, it's already booked and unavailable. To say she was mad is an understatement. She cried and called me an a-hole. This was supposed to be my wedding gift to her, she yelled. I told her that only invited guests are supposed to give gifts and that strangers always have to pay to use my Airbnb. Now she is calling out my family as a-holes for being butthurt about not having an invite. She's using her excuse that we weren't there during her childhood and that she deserves to use the cabin. My immediate family thinks I did nothing wrong, but the rest of my family said I should give in. I agree it was a petty move. But AITA? NTA. Because you're right. Only invited guests are supposed to give wedding presents. The fact that she sees you as not close enough to invite to her wedding, but close enough to feel entitled to favors from you is just absurd. Pick a lane and stick to it. Lady, you don't get this both ways. Also, pretending she didn't see your texts and then throwing a temper tantrum over her ghosting you is far more petty than you canceling her reservation because she didn't invite you to the wedding. Well, 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 if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. AITA. You gave her plenty of notice and even offered an option of her paying for the dates. Her lack of organization is not your problem. She's using her excuse that we weren't there during her childhood and that she deserves to use the cabin. Where was she during your childhood? Estrangement can be a two-way street. And in this case I'd be asking her where did she engage with me during that same time period. NTA. You're right. You don't owe anyone a wedding gift. Especially if they don't even invite you to the wedding. You actually warned her that she would have to pay for the cabin. Twice. She ignored you. Perhaps she thought you wouldn't follow through. But this cabin is wholly unconnected to her. And she's the one who put you on the same level as virtual strangers. And strangers don't loan out their private property for free. She FTCKED around and has now found out. The rest of the family who think you should give in are more than welcome to fund her honeymoon. I hate the stories of family members who believe they are entitled to everything but are not. Reciprocal. Just as she has the right not to invite you to her wedding, you have the right not to allow her to stay on your property. You warned her with enough time in advance to prepare another honeymoon destination and she chose to ignore you. The worst thing is that she tells you that that was your wedding gift. A wedding to which neither you nor your family were invited. 100% NTA. NTA. To say she was mad is an understatement. She cried and called me an a-hole. This was supposed to be my wedding gift to her, she yelled. I told her that only invited guests are supposed to give gifts. It's basic wedding etiquette. Gifts from wedding guests are not required but always welcome. The bride and groom should not expect gifts from anyone who declined the wedding invitation or anyone who was not invited. Apparently she's never read any of Miss Manners' etiquette columns. We weren't there during her childhood and that she deserves to use the cabin. That also means that she wasn't there during your childhood and she deserves nothing. The rest of my family said I should give in. 1. The cabin is already rented out so there is nothing to give in to. 2. The rest of the family should pay for an available week in the cabin, since they want to support her so much. NTA. Good thing is that you all live in different states and don't have to deal with her. NTA. Had she invited you, the costs for the cabin would have been an invitation and food and drinks for a night. Instead she didn't even bother inviting you. Ignored your texts on purpose and now sets the family up against you. She basically called you a stranger even though she made use of the cabin a lot previously. I'd be petty and send the family the link to this post, so they can see what happened and why exactly she didn't get what she was promised. I'm guessing there will be many people who'll judge you NTA. Lol. This is exactly what she was hoping for. She saw your texts and just didn't respond because she assumed she would be able to pressure you into it when the day arrived. You would have been the asshole if you had not informed her as early as you did. Which sounds like it was early enough to make other arrangements. Don't give in to this silliness. NTA. NTA. Not invited to the wedding equals no wedding gift. That's just how it is. Besides that, she had plenty of time to arrange payment for the cabin. Further, she sounds like she's throwing a tantrum and being entitled. It's her issue, not yours. But the rest of my family said I should give in. How can you give in? You said the cabin is already rented to someone else who has paid for the cabin. NTA. Your cousin can't have it both ways. Either your family and invited wedding guests, in which case the week at the cabin was an appropriate wedding gift, or you're not family and not invited to the wedding and it's inappropriate for her to expect a gift. She knows you well enough that she was a regular house guest at your cabin and for her to feel comfortable with you providing a fairly extravagant wedding gift but not close enough to merit a wedding invitation? Interesting metric she's using. NTA. You gave her a lot of notice on the situation. You had texted her several months in advance and told her the situation and gave her options. Kathy knew you well enough to hang out and fall in love with the cabin and to have a discussion about it with you. And then suddenly she doesn't know you? But she still wants something from you? NTA. But you might not have her as a cousin anymore. It's not sounding like a huge loss. Wow. Expecting a free honeymoon without even inviting that person has to be either the most brass balls move or the stupidest move I've read all day. No invite, no gift is pretty common sense. Your cousin really screwed herself. NTA. This is hilarious open mouth smile. NTA. You were not close. She said so. She was only close to you because of the cabin. And she wasn't able to talk about this like adults. Like, sorry, but I have to make cuts because of the price and I don't want to upset anyone by only inviting you from your family half or something like that. If she had called herself, you could have discussed it. So you let her know in advance that she can't have the cabin and she still thought you would give in. NTA. NTA. It was supposed to be her wedding gift? Is she for real? What an entitled bee. You did the right thing. Perhaps she ignored your messages intentionally because she thought you won't rent out the cabin if you didn't hear from her. If I don't invite you to my wedding, then I do not expect a gift from you and have no right to expect one. NTA. Of course. You need the money. You do your thing. She's a user. NTA. Yep, I would do the same. Wedding gifts are for those invited to the wedding. NTA. If you weren't close enough to be invited to the wedding, you aren't close enough for her to ask this of you. Don't give in. The hypocrisy of her. She's only your family when it suits her. Her reasons for not inviting you to her wedding were ridiculous. Why would you have needed to be there for her in her childhood? Did she have some traumatic upbringing and was ignored when she reached out to your family? If not, then I would have done the same. NTA. Excuse me. She deserves to use the cabin? Not entitled much, is she? You weren't invited to the wedding, but she still expected a gift? Especially the use of your cabin when it could be making you $. Do not give in. I love your response about only invited guests are supposed to give gifts. Classic. 2 thumbs up.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.